Number 10. Lil Batman. Starting off with a fun one from the Superman/Batman team-up series that began in 2003. So in this story, all of a sudden, there are little chibi versions of the characters running around. This was issue 51. Superman also meets a little Superman, and they're all very over-the-top caricatures of their original personalities. Like, Lil Batman is super angry and gruff, and I like to imagine he has this high-pitched version of a Christian Bale growl. And the Superman one is really enthusiastic and peppy. So this whole plot is zany up until the characters, because we end up with a whole chibi league fight their chibi villains and they end up getting hurt. Because, well, in the main verse, cartoon logic doesn't rule. It turns out this is all being orchestrated by Batmite and Mr. Mxyzptlk, and well, it all works out alright in the end. They get back to their universe and they're okay. I will never stop recommending the 2003 Batman and Superman run. It was so fun. Number 9. The Justice Lords. Let's pop on over to the DCAU, that's the DC animated universe, to a time when the Justice League met their evil alternates, not the Crime Syndicate, but rather the Justice Lords, and Superman had a great extra costume, was lobotomizing people. So this universe was prompted after the death of their Flash, who is very much the heart of the team in the DCAU. His pep and optimism made him an integral part of the Corps. This was Wally, by the way. Part of the almost 25 years that Wally was the Flash while Barry was dead. For a whole new generation of fans coming up during the start of the superhero adaptation renaissance, he was the Flash. So the Justice Lords catch wind of the main verse in the DCAU and feel that they're just letting their world fall to pieces. So they come over to impose their own brand of order. Which, after seeing how many lobotomies and militias and martial laws it takes to make that happen, the regular Justice League is not there for it. So yeah, they met their alternate versions and weren't here for it at all. How would you feel if your alternates were dystopian overlords? Like, I wouldn't approve, but at the same time I would like to see the costumes, because the evil variant costumes are always so good. The best costumes. I'm moving my hands so much because somebody said to stop, and I'm like, no, I talk how I want. We'll vogue through the whole video now. Number 8. Captain America and HYDRA Cap. This is mostly on here because I like how complicated it is to explain, and I refuse to let that new narrative they're pushing take hold that HYDRA Cap was the alternate Cap. Nah fam, that's the way they retconned it. Originally how this worked was that the entire timeline shifted, and young Cap, or rather newly young Cap because he was old, was classic Cap, and he had lived his life always as a HYDRA agent, so he was always Cap. So yeah, the Cap who is now Cap, who the Cosmic Cube drew from the other timelines past, is from another timeline now. He's not classic Cap, that's now HYDRA Cap. But we're gonna go with the he was the real Cap all along, because well, that's how the story really should have unfolded. Making HYDRA Cap always Cap was guaranteed to increase the backlash on a story that was already gonna ruffle some feathers. When you're working on a legacy character, it's not all about you and your vision, it's also about keeping the character recognizable and blending those two things together. Because you're not gonna be writing that character forever, someone else will take it over. And people are gonna, in theory, be reading the character in ongoing fashion, so it needs to feel at least slightly cohesive. Anyway, the Cap we want came back and beat up HYDRA Supreme so hard his costume flew off. Number 7. Thor vs. Eric Masterson. Eric Masterson was Thor for a bit. Let me explain. So Eric Masterson met Thor while Eric was working as an architect, and through some shenanigans ended up accompanying Thor over to the Black Galaxy, where he was mortally wounded by Mongoose. So he was given Thor's form, so they merged, then split, then re-merged. Then Thor was banished and Eric was transformed into Thor. Eric's demise was quite dramatic. It occurred after he was going by Thunderstrike, and well, he had to give into a curse from his blood axe to defeat Seth. But then he was on the warpath, so Thor eventually had to stop him. Fun fact, Eric was Thor during the Infinity Gauntlet stuff. He was bearded Thor. Eric was alright. I mean, no Thor other than Thor is real Thor. I mean, it is his name. But if my name somehow became a title, heck yeah, I'd want to be the coolest person using it. My name will not be a title. Number 6. Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen. Spider-Man has met many alternate versions of himself thanks to the Spider-Verse, Spider Totems, etc. There are many meanings one could choose from here, so I'm saving some in case there's a part 2. No blanket Spider-Man for me. Spider-Gwen debuted in the Edge of Spider-Verse storyline and became one of the breakout alternate Spideys due in no small part to her costume, which is still one many fans adore. She came from a universe where Gwen was bitten by the spider and not Peter, who died. So obviously when she met so many Peters, including Mainverse Peter, the feelings were high. So in the run at the time of this recording, she's splitting her time between her universe and the main 616 verse. Why? Cause they want stuff to happen in the main continuity. Spider-Gwen was having a thing with Miles too. So many Spideys, alternate Spideys meeting each other everywhere. Number 5. Johnny Storm and Vanguard. Vanguard, or Guard, both will explain, is an alternate version of Johnny Storm from Earth A, who yes at first looked like a hockey player. So in this timeline, Johnny didn't go to space, he didn't go on the flight with his sister, and hence he didn't become the Human Torch. Instead, he was taken to another dimension after a wartime injury and rebuilt by scientists, his body and mind better, stronger, faster, Guard Guardian. He survived as a guardian of the nexus between worlds. He wasn't here for cross-dimensional shenanigans, which of course would bring him into conflict with the Fantastic Four. During a war between the Earth 616, Earth 721, and the Fifth Dimension, the Thing would defeat Guard in a hockey-style shootout. He would then vanish into the void for a bit and become Vanguard, only to return convinced he needed to destroy redundant timelines. Why is that everyone's go-to? Still, when he encountered Johnny Storm and saw him flame off and saw that they were the same person, well, it changed him and he realized he could be better too. He decided to help timelines find closure instead. Hooray! Number 4. Nightwing and Deathwing. I just love saying Deathwing. It sounds so extra. Deathwing. So Deathwing is a version of Dick from a future timeline where he married Donna, and they had a son who became evil, a supervillain named Lord Chaos. I hope he went evil young because there is no other excuse for that name. Lord Chaos. Deathwing would end up joining the Titans in the past when a mission takes them to the new Teen Titans present. Yes. 0 Hour erased this timeline, but not Deathwing, and then later he was retconned to not be Dick Grayson cause Deathwing, a lot of things happened there. He also ended up being a rapist after he became corrupted by a dark version of Raven. And you know how comics feel about their characters being tied to questionable actions. Unless you're an anti-hero, it doesn't fly. Say it with me now. The Phoenix was a force. Parallax was a fear entity. Number 3. Young X-Men meet the old X-Men. This was an entire arc, the classic original X-Men team being pulled forward in time to meet the hot mess that was their present selves. Their book was confusingly called All New X-Men, so timeline. Cyclops has escaped from prison and is on his way to becoming what fans would call Mutant Hitler. The other X-Men can't move against him, and Iceman is all, oh man, past Scott would never, which Beast takes as challenge accepted, and goes back in time to get the young X-Men by being like, hey, so your older selves either not the best or out to lunch. Come help, please. The young X-Men would end up staying in the present timeline for quite a while until people demanded that they be sent back. It was confusing and convoluted, especially for those who weren't following closely. Most of the young X-Men who met their present versions weren't impressed, especially Cyclops. He was flat out disgusted by what had become of Scott, killing Professor X and all that. Shame. Number 2. Reed Richards and the Maker. So nice guy Dad Reed, current canon Marvel Reed, and the evil Reed from the former Ultimate Verse, Earth 1610. I guess I should add sexy dad? The comics really want me to think that, so for accuracy I guess Dill? Oh god. Reed and the Maker met before the Maker went full villain. In fact, they were working together to take on God Emperor Doom, but they had vast differences in opinion about what to do. Reed found that he had far more of a moral streak to uphold than the Maker, who wanted to kill Doom and all their enemies. He would eventually try to kill Reed, and he now haunts the Prime Earth. He's still alive. The Maker is Reed with all humanity stripped away, and he actually freaked Reed out. The Maker is really intimidating, and I love it. Evil Reed. Check him out in Absolute Carnage, not sponsored I swear. Just some of the panels there, how he's drawn, it's really disturbing. And number 1, Flash of Two Worlds. Number 1 has to go to the story that started it all. The story that started the whole multiverse when the Golden Age and Silver Age Flashes met for the first time in 1961. When Barry Allen, the Flash, vibrates his molecules in a way he hasn't previously, he finds himself in Keystone City rather than Central City, the home of the Golden Age Flash. This is Jay Garrick, and when he meets him, he's older. And in Barry's world, he's a comic book character who had retired when his comic book series had been cancelled on that Earth. So on his Earth, he retired when the comic was cancelled on Barry's. There you go. The two would team up, and this would be the establishment of Earth 2, which would become a world of Golden Age heroes and plot lines. And this Earth 2 would span into more Earths, many more team-ups, and many more crossovers. It could be said that all the other numbers on this list owe a little something to the Flash of Two Worlds. In the early days, characters would traverse between these two Earths, some even coming to live there permanently, like Black Canary. You would go to Earth 1 though, you didn't go to Earth 2. Still, eventually it would all get convoluted, and DC would try to compress the universes with Crisis on Infinite Earths, only to bring it back years later with Infinite Crisis. Now there's negative multiverses and Apex Lex and all kinds of things. Apex Lex. It's fun to say. Well, here's Apex. Apex Lex. Number 10. Backwards Hat Kelly. Just kidding. I just wanted to show you Backwards Hat Kelly. She's legit a different person. I mean, look at Roy Harper. The way you wear your hat, huge personality trait. Real number 10 is Damian Wayne and the Heretic. So Damian Wayne is the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul, and he's the latest Robin, and bratty in a way that readers will find endearing or obnoxious. He is also yet another Robin to temporarily bite the dust, and in a truly brutal fashion that just raised some questions as to just why we were being so brutal in the first first place. Damien was literally skewered by a villain called the Heretic. It turned out though that the Heretic, wait for it, was a clone of him. So he was killed by his own hyper-aged clone, who has quite the complex about feeling like Talia likes Damien more than him. Cause, well, she does. The Heretic also died really brutally. He was decapitated and had a bomb planted on his spine. Why was this era of Batman so extra? Kebab Damien was a moment. Number 9. Reed and the Council of Reeds. You know, if I can put Reed on a list, I'll put Reed on a list. And well, he met multiple versions of himself when he discovered the Council of Reeds. So the Council of Reeds is exactly what it sounds like, an interdimensional council of Reed Richardses from across the universes, who have gathered together, drawn by the innate arrogance of all Reeds, surrounding their intelligence, and that they just have the best plans for their worlds and actually the universe beyond it. This council actually started because of an odd cosmic occurrence where one man from multiple dimensions would be drawn into a Highlander-style prize fight from which there could be only one. However, it all came to a head when the one was Nathaniel Richards, the father of Reeds. This council was founded by 3 Reeds who all wielded Infinity Gauntlets, and when Primeverse Reed met this council, at first he was all for it. But just like the Maker, most of these Reeds had sacrificed everything for power, so Reed found he was kind of an anomaly, having a family and friends and other responsibilities, and ultimately he found that he needed to separate himself from the council. This all happens in Hickman's Fantastic Four, which is an amazing run. You should all read it. It will make you love the Fantastic Four. Maybe. I don't know what you like. Number 8. Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go. That's right, I'm breaking the sacred oath of official nerddom and talking about Teen Titans Go and not in a negative light. Clearly I just never had any taste and just go sit inside a box of shame. How dare I find joy in things others dislike. So Teen Titans Go is a satirical series parodying the early 2000s animated Teen Titans series that engendered much fan outrage for not being a continuation of the original series, despite having the same voice cast, having varied humor, some of it quite juvenile, also the more simplistic art style, and some took it as an insult to the original characters. Despite this, and I'll die on this hill, this show is its own thing and has merit, and not all the jokes are as lowbrow as you'd think. They also embrace the salt, and as a salt queen, that's right up my alley. Like this movie, where they meet the Titans that everybody wanted them to be. And yeah, it's full of the jokes people have been hurling at them for years. If you're a good sport and can laugh at beef like that, then this will be right up your alley. You can enjoy both. You don't have to pick a side, like we can all get along. But it's fine, unsub, I understand. I mean, people liking different things, disgusting. Number 7, Thomas Wayne and Bruce Wayne. They're both Batman accounts. One of the emotional moments to come from Flashpoint, I mean aside from Barry getting to see his mom again, was that Thomas Wayne, who was Batman in that universe because it was Bruce who died in the alley, got to talk to his son when he learned that his son had a life in another universe. So he took the time to write him a letter that he then gave to Barry to give to him when he fixed the timeline, and by fixed I mean gave us the New 52. So maybe he should just stay there and let Atlantis and Themyscira destroy the world. Which is really harsh, it wasn't that bad. And Bruce got to get a letter from his dad, and it was really sweet, and he cried. He's also hung out with his dad lately in the Tom King run. That's all I have to say about that. Number 6, Gambit and New Sun. Gambit is more powerful than many people are aware. He just chooses to charge playing cards. He can do a lot more. Some would even go so far as to say he's OP now. Case in point, New Sun. He's also called the Executioner, too. And he is from Earth 9923. So New Sun Gambit can't control his kinetic energy, or he couldn't for a bit after a ritual gone wrong, and it had flared out of control and he had destroyed his world. So he was traveling to alternate realities, killing other versions of himself so they couldn't destroy their worlds. Basically, it's the one with Jet Li. Never forget that movie, it's great. But New Sun would often find that he was too late, and Gambit had already destroyed the world. So when he got to 616 and met a not full potential Gambit, he hid himself from him and tried to get help to create a new world. But when he found he couldn't, he was like, well, better kill Gambit. This battle would burn Gambit out, and well, we're safe from another New Sun. For now. Number 5, Old Man Deadpool and Young Pool, or regular Pool. Halfway through with the Deadpool and Spidey team-up comic, and the arc from the second half of the book after veteran Deadpool writer Joe Kelly, who had penned the first arc, left. So this second arc involved time travel and an old version of Deadpool and Spider-Man being transported to the past, all because of an AI built by Peter's parents, who get more and more busy by the retcon, I tell you. Older Spidey and Deadpool were good friends, a fact that brought younger Deadpool much joy, even if he was jealous that his future self knew Peter's secret identity, which he would later learn sorta. The book got cancelled at issue 50, which is like a decent number for a team up in the modern era, but it just meted out hard, with them arresting the writer, him seeing Peter's face but it was blank. Yeah. Number 4, Donna Troy meets Evil Donna. Hi Donna of the many origins. Rebirth saw her meeting an evil version of herself. Poor Donna, her whole genesis is such a mess. So Donna is leading the Titans now at the time of this recording, while Dick Grayson is Rick Grayson. He's angry and doesn't want anything to do with the Bat Fam. So Jason, Rick, he's just so distinct. Totally worth it, cause now people won't make dick jokes anymore. That's a great trade-off for assassinating a character. That's one status quo I can't wait to see reset. If they leave that permanent, there aren't enough tables in the world for me to flip. Anyway, Donna, she fights Troya, which is another name she had from way back before the New 52 when her origin was first retconned. That is after she got one. This new origin was her being saved by the Titans, so it had nothing to do with Wonder Woman, so she changed her name from Wonder Girl to Troya. So Troya has been alive for 1400 years and wants to kill the Titans to spare herself from the dreary, painful future she now inhabits. This issue is cool. Donna uses a lasso of truth on her, learns her history, and Troya is all, join me. Together we can destroy this timeline. Of course. Donna in Rebirth is solid. Just leave her alone. Oh wait, infected. Never mind. Number 3. Gwenpool and everyone. Gwenpool debuted as a variant cover on Deadpool's Secret Wars. And is she Deadpool? Yes, but no. Is she Gwen? Yes, but no. Who is she? She's a character created because cosplayers really liked her costume. Her name is literally Gwenpool. People get confused about who she is though, and that makes sense because she looks like Gwen, but she's wearing a pink Deadpool costume and she breaks the fourth wall like there's no tomorrow. She doesn't even believe in the fourth wall. So if you're not following everything closely, being confused makes a lot of sense. She's met Deadpool and Gwen, and she is just, well, anywhere she wants to be in the Marvel Universe at the moment. Her official canon backstory currently, they're saying they're gonna retcon it, is that she's a comic book fan from our world who got sucked into comics. There's a miniseries at the time of this recording, it's promising big things, which always scares me. Number 2, Hulk and Maestro. I always want to put so much emphasis on it. Maestro. So Maestro is an alternate version of the Hulk from the future who possesses an increased intelligence but also so much rage. So the Hulk will be brought forward in time. This was Professor Hulk to beat Maestro, who had an ironclad grip on the world, and a group of rebels would bring forward the Hulk, and he would find defeating Maestro pretty much impossible. Maestro knows his plans and is seemingly stronger. The Hulk actually has to take him back in time to the gamma explosion that created him to take him out. Yet he lives in fear that this is what he could become. Still better than, in my opinion, the incest Hulk from Old Man Logan. Gross. I like how with Gamma you can just do what you want. Oh, it will make him super smart, or oh, it made him go insane. Both valid. Number 1, Batman Dark Knight's Metal. That's right, it's the Dark Knight's Metal event, where alternate Batman from the dark multiverse emerged. So let's talk about the breakout. The Batman Who Laughs from Earth -22, a world where Batman had become the Joker, essentially, after he snapped the Joker's neck and inhaled some of the toxins from his body and transformed. He would go on to haunt Bruce from the main Earth with what he could become. So Batman actually had to team up with the Joker to take him down. Apparently the one eventuality that the Batman Who Laughs couldn't foresee? Why? Joker and Batman talk. Batman visits him in Arkham. They have teamed up before. In what world is this unforeseen? Still, that's what it takes. Now the effects of the Batman Who Laughs are still being felt at the time of this recording, as he infected people within the universe, and it was supposed to be a secret, but now we just know because we all have access to way more info than we used to. Still, this was one epic time that a main verse person met their alternate. Number 10, She-Hulk vs. She-Hulk, the meta trial. Starting off with a bit of a reach to get warmed up, we have Jennifer Walters facing off against the different versions of herself, but most notably, the more traditionally beautiful or pinup She-Hulk, and her angry like She-Hulk, the Hulk one, who people call the ugly Hulk, but real talk, she's just buff and Hulk-like. Even this version is still drawn as relatively traditionally attractive, but I digress. This whole issue is a trial about the right to be ugly, and depending upon how you feel about representation in comics and escapism versus representation, the balance between, you could have had many reactions to this issue. And contrary to what you've probably heard, that doesn't make you a good or bad person or a better or worse fan. It makes you a person with an opinion, just like everybody else. In my opinion, it's an interesting discussion to have, and a topic that in the past has even been handled with humor, such as with the Hawkeye initiative, where sexy covers were redrawn with sexy Hawkeye. But it is also an argument that is often made in an isolated bubble, separate from other context, or with a focus on the real world and not the fictional canonical one. Which is how you can then have Jen calling Bruce Banner, her cousin the Hulk, out for daring to be jealous of her. It was an interesting issue, it got people talking. I definitely won't forget it anytime soon. Number 9, Batman Batman and Owlman. Whenever people talk about this, you're most likely going to see a versus in the title. Let them fight is the name of the game when it comes to Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne Jr. There have been multiple depictions of Owlman thanks to DC's many universe shifts, and most of them have met Bruce Wayne. The New 52 version was heavily involved in the Court of Owls, and was from the Prime Earth, so he doesn't count. We need our crime syndicate buddy from Earth 3, otherwise known as the Reverse Earth back in the day. Batman has had to fight Owlman on more than one occasion, but always seems to find it a little disturbing. That cold methodology, so calculatingly applied to crime instead of heroism. It's enough to make you think, or it would be if they didn't do an Elseworld story about it every other week. To which I say, keep them coming. Number 8. Tim Drake and Savior. Yes, some love for the third Robin, Tim Drake, who now has middle child syndrome over at DC, and is as a result often forgotten. Well, he has an alternate future version who became Batman for a time, even though Tim had vowed that that was something he would never do. There's a whole alternate timeline here with Bruce dying, killed by Batwoman for reactivating Brother Eye, his super paranoid AI network cause, you know, his friends mind wiped him because he didn't want to mind wipe someone else, even if they were a villain. The older Tim and young Tim would meet, which would cause old gun-wielding Tim to realize that time could be changed, which paradoxically ended up with him attacking Tim and not working with him. His quest through time would eventually see him turn into Savior. He had a cool arc during the Super Sons, which was just a good comic in general. Wholesome fun. Even Savior. Number 7. Supergirl and Power Girl. Supergirl and Power Girl are an interesting case, cause how they came to be the same character is just a mess. So Kara was from Earth 2, this is Power Girl Kara, the Earth assigned to Golden Age characters. But by Crisis on Infinite Earths, this Earth was producing its own legacy characters, which was getting to be a bit confusing for readers. Now, Supergirl had been created much earlier than Power Girl, but had had a more nebulous and changing backstory for years, even though Power Girl would end up with her backstory. So what was it? Originally, Supergirl was the sole survivor of Argo City, and she was Superman's cousin. Okay, so we had 2 Supergirls, one on the Prime Earth and one on Earth 2, but then Crisis on Infinite Earths killed Supergirl but left Power Girl but retconned her to not being Kryptonian for a bit, so Superman could truly be the last son of Krypton. It was, in short, a mess. Supergirl and Power Girl have met on a few occasions, teamed up, fought, and it usually met with confusion. If you look up Supergirl, you'll find things like, does Supergirl become Power Girl? Still, the two tend to get along pretty well, but because of their designs, there are some jokes out there pondering why Power Girl is so, well, powerful, while Supergirl is not. Not to mention the contention over the boob window. I love a boob window, but that's just me. Number 6. Thor Core. More Thor in at number 6, with a whole core. So during Secret Wars, while Doom was God Emperor, he decided that the best course of action was to set up a group made up of high-powered individuals from across Battleworld. This was as a kind of police force. So to become a member of the Thor Corps, you had to be able to wield Mjolnir, and you have to look good in a helmet. Just kidding, it's just the hammer thing. So they served Doom without question, and you have all these different versions of Thor on one team, hanging out, chilling, maxing, relaxing, all cool. The Thor Corps would end up joining the rebellion against Doom later on, and probably were destroyed when the big climax happened with Reed and the Molecule Man. Number 5. The Deadpool Corps. Of course, Deadpool has a whole core of alternate versions of himself. He would, and he did. This series was all about alternate versions of Deadpool coming together to create a super group, the pooliest group they could be. You've got Lady Deadpool, Headpool, Kidpool. It was all as zany and madcap as you would imagine. Oh, and Dogpool, gotta remember Dogpool. Of all the characters to meet alternate versions of themselves, it falls the most in line for Deadpool, what with his fourth wall breaking antics and the like. If anybody should have a core of themselves, it's him. Number 4. Future Flash and Blue Flash. Ah, Barry. So many time-traveling Flash stories, including Barry. This of course led to him meeting his future self, the Future Flash, or Blue Flash, which was a look. So Future Flash was from 20 years in the future where Wally had been killed by a bunch of rogues. So Barry, driven mad by guilt, has dedicated himself to building up enough speed so that he can go back in time and stop this from happening. Cause that's who Barry is post Flashpoint. Timelines there for mere mortals. Barry will change them as he so pleases. So Barry is convinced his more depressing future can only be averted by saving Wally, and this leads him to murdering his rogues in an attempt to gain more speed. He would end up traveling back, doing battle with present Barry, who had a more sober way of looking at the timeline. So Future Flash ended up being stuck in the past, like the Reverse Flash. Time travel doesn't work out well for these Flashes crashes. That's what you get when you get off the treadmill. Number 3. Captain Marvel and the Reality Stone. So Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, pre-official villainous Ben, found herself in possession of the Reality Stone, or gem, depends on how much the comic wants to tie into the MCU. In the story Dark Origins, Carol was transported to an alternate universe where she was a supervillain. I know, I can hear you. Your jokes are already pouring in. Insert your she was already evil jokes down below. She ended up using the Reality Stone to get home, and in the process saw all the other versions of herself out there, and the paneling is really cool. Now Captain Marvel is having a villain arc at the time of this recording, and I just love the costume. It's a good look. I'm always a sucker for the eye makeup gone messy just all over the face. It says I still care but in an abstract way, and you're all too scared of me to say anything except yeah, it looks lit fam. Excellent. Number 2. Harley Quinn and other Harleys. We talked last time about the idea of multiple Harley Quinns, and this has been played with more than once in the main DC universe. I almost said metaverse, but I won't let Doomsday Clock correct me like that. In the New 52, Harley was believed to have met alternate versions of Harleys, when Joker showed her a mass grave of women all wearing her costume in a dungeon. People like to cite the New 52 as a kind of barometer, to be like, look at how bad their relationship is. Okay, look, the New 52 should not be used as a barometer for anything. Remember jeans and t-shirt Clark Kent Superman? Also, Harley killed a whole block full of kids in that universe. Harley has also met copycats who want to be the crazed girlfriend of the Joker, women inspired by her. She is pretty much never impressed. I mean, why have a copy when you can have the original? Number 1. Superman and New 52 Superman. Of all the changes to characters made in the New 52, Superman's was one of the most jarring. He started off quite different, harsher, more distant, wearing jeans, and it was one of the more consistent complaints you would hear from most people that Superman didn't feel like Superman, and that bled into all the other things that happened, even his relationship with Wonder Woman, though some liked it, although she was a bit OC too. Eventually New 52 Superman was phased out. In the storyline The Final Days of Superman, we were given back OG Superman with a beard, and he was married to Lois and had a son. The two would go on an actually really heartfelt journey together that would really give credit to both Superman and what they stood for. New 52 Superman also had to fight a Superman imposter. This was a really good finale for New 52 Superman. He would die heroically and dramatically with all his friends there to see him off. He would then later be replaced with Prime Superman, OG Superman, who would proceed to just kind of take over his life and pick up where he left off with his friends. That part was kind of awkward. It's just like how we don't think about how non-HYDRA Cap is actually Cap from a separate timeline from the main verse. We let these things fade.